Hey guys, welcome to the Trading Genius podcast. Got my good friend Bob Kudley here. Guess what? The Fed is trapped. We're going to tell you why, how, and what that means for your investments. Let's dive in.
Trade Genius.
So Bob, why is the Fed, or how have they painted themselves into a corner, and what's that going to mean for the markets?
Yeah, so I think for us, this is actually a bad news story that's going to be awesome news for people that trade with us because the Fed is falling into our trap, Phil. So they created an environment now where if they are too loose with monetary policy, they're selling off the long end of the curve. If they're too tight on monetary policy, the dollar spikes and countries will default on their debt and they're going to have to sell the treasuries to manage their currencies. So either way, the long end of the curve, which what I mean by the curve, the bond yield curve, the 10-year, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year curve, if that gets blown out, that's bad news for everybody. So the Fed only has one choice, one policy decision to make, no matter how much they yak about getting it under 2% and all this other good stuff, is that they're going to have to control the yield curve, right? They call that YCC, yep. And it's called financial repression. So therefore, if you lend people money, you're not really getting your risk return is not in your favor. Okay, they're just going to be supporting borrowers, i.e., the government being the biggest one. But what that means for us in terms of trading, Phil, is that all the things that you and I own and we've been trading in and out of for the last umpteen years is going to be in the sweet spot. Bitcoin's already sniffed it out. Okay, and Bitcoin is going absolute bananas. Sorry about yesterday. I wanted to do a Bitcoin update, but the market was just too crazy and Bitcoin was just going too crazy that it was hard to leave the desk for those who were trading at leverage long. So Bitcoin is going to continue to move higher. There's no doubt whatsoever. And gold and silver miners are going to do great, i.e. gold will, silver will. Oil is going to do fine. And the 10-year yield is going to do fine with yield curve control because they're going to have to entice borrowers so the banks make money. So all the things that we own, TLT, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin proxies, gold and silver miners, oil drillers, all are going to do great. So Bob, what's the downside? I think the downside is tech, Phil. And I'm not the only one that thinks that way too. We've been talking a long time ago about the great rotation, tech out, all those things in. Now you got, the one and only Oz, Jam Croissant, out there saying the same thing. If all those things are going to be supported, what's going to go down? And what's going to go down is Jam Croissant, tech companies, NVIDIA being the biggest one.
Yeah, and I think Bitcoin is going to be the victor here because if you look at the way Bitcoin is designed, essentially it's designed to absorb what yield curve control would institute, and that is essentially printing, right? I mean, it's another form of QE because you have to support the bond market. Supporting the bond market creates liquidity. Liquidity ultimately filters its way into the markets. And so, if we don't have it on this video, but we will show that why Bitcoin kind of ended up moving the way it did and why it consolidated as long as it did, because really it's a function of monetary global liquidity more so now. But whenever we get into these environments or these reactions, that's the one thing, and we've talked about that in years past, where the ultimate, I think all roads lead to yield curve control, and this is exactly why. So obviously things like Bitcoin, which are very finite and very scarce, are going to probably see the biggest performance, and then that plays into all of the proxies too, right? MSTR and all of those yield plays that we do. So I just think that if you're not paying attention to this, and I think a lot of people are not, unless you're watching us and are keyed in on this, then I think you're going to be wondering why on the whole is your performance of your portfolio not keeping up. I think the best way to gauge your portfolio performance is how does it do against the Fed's balance sheet. If you aren't outpacing the Fed's balance sheet, you're losing. So you can chart against the Fed balance sheet. Maybe we'll show them how to do that on a future video. But one of the biggest winners against that is things like Bitcoin, and some stocks have as well. So that's where you want to focus on going forward, because this is not going away and it's going to be a permanent part of our, basically our monetary cycle.
Yeah, Phil, we should show maybe tomorrow, let's show them the chart, how Bitcoin works up against the global liquidity numbers too. It's absolutely scary. And if you love Bitcoin, you probably are dying from delirium because the way the liquidity is starting to ramp up around the world. It's going to be scary good. Now, having said that, we can see some pretty volatile moves up and down on Litecoin, right? So, I just want to be careful here. There's a difference between, day to day or week to week trading and month to month month and quarter to quarter investing in that asset class. So it could get volatile on you. Look, it already went up $20,000 since the election. So, things can pull back some, but it still has a date with Destiny higher. So let's definitely talk about it tomorrow, Phil. Let's not forget, okay? And let's talk Bitcoin, where we think Bitcoin's going to go, why it's going to do that, what it's going to do. But also, too, if you don't trade Bitcoin, you don't have to worry about it. The Bitcoin proxies are doing extremely well, too. If you're afraid to get a Bitcoin account and trade Bitcoin, afraid you're going to lose your coin or your seed, name and all that good stuff, there's other ways in which you can stay ahead of the inflation monster or the fiat monster, and you can make a lot of money. I think, Phil, man, over the next first of all, over the next 2 months, we're going to make life-altering money. And in a pullback, we're going to make life-altering money too. So come trade with us. TradeLikeAGenius.com. Got specials running. I mean, we've made people more money, probably 10 years worth of money of our service over the last couple of days. So come check us out. A lot of fun and good people in the room. You'll learn a lot, and you'll learn best practices, and you'll learn to stay ahead of instead of the tsunami that's coming our way. Thanks a lot, Phil. Catch you guys tomorrow.
Trade Genius.